Hey there. Happy 4th of July if you celebrate July 4th. I wanted to talk about the lunar eclipse, July 4th, 5th, depending where you are in the world. It's a very interesting expression of what we're going through. The moon and sun that are opposite in a full moon are at 13 degrees, and 13 is a 4. 1 and 3 is 4. This is July 4th for at least people in most of the Americas that this is happening on. And we are in a 4-year, 2020. So the 3 different aspects of the 4, pretty important because 4 is about structure. And the 2020, that 4, that brings us that 2020 or the 2 twos, this idea of being liberated through our finding balance, through our finding peace, through architecting the design of what we desire. So it's this creative energy or this bringing in, flooding in of a grander vision or a vision that is different to what's been, that is unfolding. And at this time with all these 4s, is requiring us to root something into existence, because we are in the dreaming time, and now with Capricorn full moon, the culmination of the patriarchal systems or patriarchal system is now here, right? We're culminating at this time that Saturn, that had moved forward into Aquarius, is now back in Capricorn to kind of put that mark in the world, right? That this is it. And so you have to think about the ending of something is when it reaches its highest point, right? Although we don't know when the highest point is, do we? So the ending is this idea that it feels like it's, that there will be a resistance, that there will be different kinds of resistance, and we're certainly seeing many different kinds of resistance, but we're also seeing the tearing of the cloth, the changing of the guard, that there is space for new ideas, space for rebellion that there hasn't been, which doesn't mean there isn't going to be that resistance, that there isn't going to be that pushback. In fact, we will see that pushback because those that have whatever the power is. It's like when you're playing a game, those in power are not just going to suddenly go, okay, you win, right? It doesn't work like that. It is a much more complex system. So really what it requires from us is that we go, I see who you are, I see what you believe in, I don't believe in it, and I don't believe that I can beat you at this game using your rules. 4 is about rules. Capricorn is about rules and time and systems. And Saturn is considered the father of time, the energy of creating a system, energy of control. So there's different ways of looking at systems, right? One could be that a system that overrides others, and there is a certain safety in that. There's a certain grounding in a system, because when we have a plan, when we have a system, when we have a route of how things go, we can relax because now we have the boundaries, right? So we feel safe when we have boundaries. The thing that's the illusion of our time, or of the patriarchal system, is that the boundaries are not changeable, and that the boundaries are put in there by a certain group of people. Like the patriarchal system was built on force. It was also built on religion, like the idea that here's a system, a belief system, which is what a religion is, the belief system. And we are going to enforce that belief system on everyone, right? So anyone who doesn't agree with us will be undermined, will be killed, will be punished, will be made to conform. So you just need to think about the system we've lived under, and that's what happens. Like if we don't follow the rules, which are the guidelines or the boundaries, then we are ostracized, we are mocked, we are maybe threatened, punished, killed, tortured, etc., because we're not doing what this system of rules, this system of beliefs wants us to do, or those that hold the keys. With the patriarchal system crumbling, there is an opening of portals, of spaces, of awareness, like, oh, this system that I have worshipped or been in alliance with, I am no longer in agreement with. Because in order for a system to control us, to control our lives, we all have to be in agreement with it. Or let's say the bulk of us have to agree, otherwise it doesn't work. Like if somebody comes along and says, you know, everybody, these are the rules going forward, and everyone goes like, who cares, I'm not doing that, then there's no impact, right? The impact happens when there is a pull to, you know, follow that Pied Piper, the one who comes along and looks like the savior, the one who speaks and captures our imagination and does things. Now, sometimes those who come along and capture our imagination are tyrants. Many times, actually, they're tyrants. And so the definition of a tyrant is somebody who says, while the world may have many ways, this is my way and this is what you will do. So I will do what I need to, right? I will take control. I will order people around. I will somehow convince and persuade through all the means available to me that everyone will want to be in my group. And those that are not in my group, well, I'm free to mock them or punish them or do whatever I want, right? So there is a certain spell that is cast on those of us that follow someone, this Pied Piper. And then there's also a spell cast on those who are not caught up, because then they're going, well, I don't believe it, this person's terrible, we need to destroy them. And so everyone then becomes embroiled in a war of belief, right? That this one has one belief, this one has the opposite, and we just can't find a way, but we're enmeshed in this destruction because we're trying to force our will on others. So we're just reinforcing the patriarchal system, which is based on forcing the will of one on many, and then getting the many to do the work for the will of one, right? Or the group that is in charge. So when you shape people to police for you, when you go, this is what it is, but I can't be there all the time, so I'm going to instruct people to work for me. And that's really what we do. We work for whoever's in charge, and we hold up the rules for that person or those people's desires, belief systems. One thing to think about is the agenda. What's the agenda behind the Pied Piper? Why does the Pied Piper want us to all follow their rules? And how does it make us feel? Because usually when we are entrenched to something that is forced upon us, we usually feel like we're being silenced, like we can't ask the questions we want to ask, that we feel victimized or controlled in some way, that we will be ostracized if we leave or in trouble. There's a lot of fear around it, right? So it's basically a system built on fear that disguises itself as love. So if you really love me, you'll do what I want, right? That's the patriarchal system. So as we move into a system of potential, that we can actually have a system that's built on love, where we want to educate people. We want to answer their questions. We want them to know that love is not conditional on their agreement, That's a very different system, and it requires a lot of different behaviors and awareness, right? It's not a blind following, it's awareness of who am I, what do I believe, do my beliefs, do my values line up with the Pied Pipers, you know, or any of these Pied Pipers? Do I actually want to just blindly follow somebody just because, you know, they're magnetic or they have a great message? The truth is, if we just blindly follow, then we don't have autonomy. And this time is the opportunity for us to learn autonomy. So to pull back from being enmeshed in the opinions of others. So we don't actually need people to agree with us for us to live a different way. Of course, when we're few or you're just alone living a different way, it can be more challenging. On the other hand, you can also do things like not get involved in arguing with others, not trying to, hold on, I need a drink of water. That's my swallow. I don't know if you can hear it, it's loud. So delicious to drink of the life, isn't it? So it's like you don't engage with people to convince them. Like, why are you talking to people? Yeah, because you have something valuable that you think is the truth. Well, if you think this is truth, that it's valuable, how can you encourage people to come using the principle of love? This is available to you. This is going to help you feel less afraid, more connected. I want you to feel more connected. I want you to feel more whole, that you are checking in with yourself, that you're not blindly following, that, you know, this idea that there's just one great leader, one guru who knows it all. You know, of course, that's total bullshit. So how do you find the way to encourage people to make their own choices, right? Sharing information, sharing opportunity, being an example. It's the greatest way to encourage others, right? And being stringent about those things. It's not trying to force your opinion on others, not wasting your time arguing with people who don't see your point of view. It's much better to just let them have their opinion and kind of go round them. You know, you can have boundaries. If this is your opinion, if this is what you believe, and I believe something different, then perhaps we're not friends. Perhaps we keep our distance. Perhaps we only do certain things together. And those are all your choices. Like, you get to decide who you're following and why you're following them, who you're arguing with and why you're arguing, right? You know, these are great times to do great things because no one's paying attention. They're paying attention to wanting to be right. So, you know, paying attention to trying to suppress so that there is only certain people. Like, if you think about patriarchy dying, right? So here's the kind of flame of patriarchy going out. And then there's people waiting, like, around, like, I want that flame. I want to carry the flame. I know the way forward, you know, and they're waiting to grasp the flame and to get you on board with their Pied Piper story, right? And so the key here is to sidestep all of that, because that's what the four tells us. We're taking the energy or the inspiration, which is the breath of ideas, imagination, life. We're bringing it into ourselves. We're grounding it. We're making it real. We're turning an idea into reality. The eclipse on the 10th of January was in Capricorn at 20 degrees. And that was, you know, when we were starting to come into the 2020, the shifting of the time, the embracing of humanity in a different way, of recognizing the polarities and finding the juiciness of all having different opinions on the same plane, which is really rather beautiful if you think about it. If we're not spending our time trying to convince others, we can spend our time experiencing all of these things that are fascinating to us. And those that are connected or excited, or somehow we find some similarity, we then explore and expand and create together. Right? That's the renaissance, the rebirth of ideas that are not being controlled. Then we have on the 30th of November, we have another solar eclipse. I think it's a solar eclipse, actually. Anyway, November 30th, we have another eclipse. So here we are on the 4th or 5th of July, kind of in the center point between these two, and receiving this information. So the eclipse on the 30th is at 8 degrees. So we started off with 2. This time it's a 4, the 13, and then 8. 2, 4, 8. These are the 3 numbers that relate to making things real. 2 is about intuition, connection, understanding boundaries, understanding how to communicate so we can actually connect the dots, communicate and create community, build together. The 4 is about the design or pattern that we bring into being, so we have a system we can follow. And then the 8 is about leadership, looking at the bigger picture. How do we take this system and expand it? So there's many aspects to this energy that's exploding around us right now. I find it fascinating that we have the 4, 5, so that's creating a system, and 5 is about change, and knowing that change is coming. The change is always here, and that we must embrace it with courage. We must be true to our nature and what is coming to us, and expressing that so we can move forward, experiencing our emotions, experiencing our exploratory selves so we can expand and then grow into our new leadership. If you think each of us in our own way is a leader, we're a leader of our lives, and then we collectively lead together, even if we have different opinions. So the more we focus on a system that supports interdependence and independence, as opposed to you're helpless, there's something wrong with you, you need to follow my method, which makes you weaker, and actually whoever is telling you this, or there could be more than one group, are feeding off your energy, so you're weakened by that. So that's the patriarchal system. Moving away from that system is a system that recognizes your individual autonomy, your individual energy that you get to choose, but it requires discipline. It requires devotion. It requires an awareness, right? Because it's easy to want to go back to somebody else keeping us safe, somebody else creating whatever it is, and we can just kind of fall into it. And yeah, that's great. But then what are we giving in exchange to have that energy of falling into someone else's dream, falling into someone else's vision, right? Are we doing it because it aligns with what we believe, or is because we're hooked into something that we feel some way trapped or compelled by someone else's dream? Because that's not love, right? Compulsion isn't love. It's an illusion. So we want to look through the illusion. We want to keep coming back to how we are co-creating this experience we're having, how we're developing our minds, our beings, so that we can walk towards this greater vision and establish our independence, so we can then work collectively, right? If we are not getting what we need, then we are dissatisfied and we're always looking for someone else to fix something or to blame, then we are not great co-creators. In fact, we are weakening the system. 13 is the number of the divine feminine, and it is the number that allows us to break through the glass, the thickness, the system that has been pressing into us. So with the 13, we can break through, break away, be reborn, kind of have that death, whatever it is, that breaking down like we are experiencing right now, the COVID-19. is a breakdown of the system that allows us to root new things. So while it might feel challenging, know that this is a very exciting time, because we get to explore and feel into who we are, and we get to develop new ways of being. I'm Jen Duchene of jenduchene.com. I would love to hear your questions, your thoughts. What do you want to know about what's happening? I'm a channel for the Akashic Records. I do readings, healings, teachings. I also am the creator of the Illuminating Journey cards and the author of the Chic Cocoon. I would love to connect with you. Look forward to seeing you next time.